So this is local Penang coffee. They take the coffee and they mix it with margarine and sugar and sesame seeds. Today I'm photographing several artisans in my home of Penang, Malaysia. A few of them have even been designated as to what UNESCO calls Penang's intangible heritage. Now the camera that I'm using is a brand new camera. In fact, it's just been released today. They say good things come in small packages, right? Well, today we're going to find out if this is true with the release of Fujifilm's smallest X-series camera along with their lightest XF lens. It's the long overdue XE4 and the new FX 27mm Mark II lens. This is one of the World Heritage artists. This is Mr. Lee. He's a traditional Chinese sign painter. He carves them, lacquers them. So this is glue, right, Mr. Lee? And you'll put gold leaf on that later? Okay, so I think that's a wrap for the day. I think we got some pretty good stuff, and why don't we go back to my house and we can talk about this little guy. Well, welcome to my home. So let's take a minute and let's talk about this little guy. So the XE4 is the rangefinder styled little brother to the X series flagship, the X Pro 3, except it doesn't have the optical viewfinder. Now, I like to think of this little guy as sort of the love child between the X Pro series and the X100 series. And I think that's pretty accurate, actually. But now this isn't just a small camera. This is a tiny one at only 121.3 millimeters wide, 72.9 in height, 32.7 in depth, weighing in at only 365 grams. This is just a little guy. Fuji is marketing this camera as sort of the perfect vacation camera. But the question is it the ultimate camera and lens for the minimalist traveler? Well, let's look at it and see if we can determine if it is. Fuji has planted the XE4 right in the middle of the consumer and hobbyist market. But now, don't let that fool you, because while it may lack some of the bells and whistles of the flagship cameras like the X-T4 or the X Pro 3, it still sports many of the same features, like the 26 megapixel back illuminated X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor. The new XE4 has 100% coverage of its phase detection AF. So at the guts of this little guy is the X Processor 4. Now the LCD monitor is the same size, it's 3 inches, that was on the XE3. The viewfinder, however, has now 2.36 million dots resolution. Now the battery is not the new battery found in the X-T4, but it's the standard NPW126S. Now the camera also gives user access to all of the now famous Fujifilm simulations. I think there's like 18 of them now, and you have all those to choose from. If rapid shooting is something that you want, the XE4 can do 8 frames a second burst shooting using manual shutter with a maximum of 20 frames burst a second on electronic shutter without any crop. Now, if you don't mind a 1.25 crop, you can get up to 30 frames a second. One of the goals they had when making this camera was to make this even lighter than the XE3, the previous version. And they managed to do it. Now, the way they did it is, and I don't know if you can see this, but they really straightened out a lot of the lines, and they did this by removing the front grip. They took off the thumb grip, and they even took away the rear control dial. Now, there's some people that are not gonna like this. They like to have a grip like this, and you know, for me, it doesn't really bother me. I do miss the thumb grip. I wish there was, but you know, you can buy these hot shoe thumb grips, and I think it would actually work perfect for this. Now, normally I don't use the hot shoe thumb grip because I normally have on my cameras, well, not normally necessarily, but often, I'll have a flash trigger in the hot shoe. So, but I don't see myself using this camera for a lot of off-camera flash. So, I don't know. I don't think that's going to be an issue for me. I think a hot shoe thumb grip on this camera could really feel great. I think it would look good as well. Now, one of the coolest things about this camera is the rear LCD screen. And you can see it's very reminiscent of the X100V, how it's just very flush to the body, right? In fact, the only reason you'd know it was a flip screen is this little thumb tab right here. Now, what's really neat about this is it's a 180-degree tilt. So you can pull it out like this, and I don't know if you watched me shooting in the video here ahead, I shot a lot of it like this, like a waist level finder, or out here as a waist level finder, but you can also then flip it up and use it for selfie mode in a sense, or for vlogging. It's pretty nice. I think this is a great addition, and I really think right here, this makes the camera in many ways. Now the side ports, you've got HDMI and USB-C port where you can charge it and you can use it on the battery as well. And then you have a mic and combined mic and remote port. Inside the camera, you've got, of course, the battery compartment, and then you have one single SD card slot. Now, some people are going to gripe and complain that it doesn't have two SD card slots. But again, this is a consumer-based camera. This is not meant for the pro. As far as function buttons go, there's really only one designated function button, and that's right here on top. It has front command dial, no rear command dial, like I said. Now you can change some of these buttons to become a different function, but I find because there is no ISO dial on here, I use the front command dial to change my ISO. Now, as for video, I've got to be honest with you. I wanted to shoot video with this, and I really wanted to shoot what Fuji says is going to be 1080p at 240 frames a second, so 10 times slow-mo. I wasn't able to because this is a almost a pre-production camera, if you will. In fact, this is the only XE4 in the whole country of Malaysia. And it came out pretty early, and so the firmware on it didn't have all the complete options. In fact, like most pre-production cameras, the firmware can be a little glitchy. Of course, all that's going to be worked out on the final when you get the camera. But I will say what they say is coming out in this camera is pretty impressive for a consumer level camera. It's going to have DCI 4K at 29.9p, 200 megabits, and 10-bit recording using HDMI. If you want to do full HD, 1920 by 1080, you can get 240p. Like I said, that's 10 times slow motion. The XE4 even shoots F-Log for you video purists. So, you know, it's an impressive little unit when it comes to video. Now, is it a XT4 or an XH1 with the video capabilities? No, it's not. But is it going to make you amazing videos on your vacation or for your vlog? Yeah, I think it will. So let me transition for a minute and talk about the new lens that's been released today, and that's the 27mm Mark II. Now this new lens is equivalent to a 40mm full frame. It's the most compact and lightest of all the XF glass, weighing in at 84 grams. Now everything about this lens is the same as the Mark I, with the exception of two major factors. One is that they made it weather sealed, which is great. However, the biggest factor for me is that it has an aperture ring now. And you know, for me, that made this lens usable because frankly, I didn't get into Fuji to use a command dial to change my f-stop. So yeah, so I think in that sense, it's a real win for Fuji for this lens. Now, talking about this lens and this camera together, and talking about this idea of being a minimalist travel kit, I don't think that this lens is necessarily going to be the perfect lens for traveling. I do think Fuji has hit it out of the park with the XE4 as far as a minimalist travel camera. Not so much with this lens though. I think the lens that you're going to need to use with this as a travel camera is going to be the 18-55. That lens will be perfect. It's not too big for the body, and it's a fairly fast lens, and it gives you a focal length from 18 to 55. Now, some people are going to love this camera, and some probably not. I guess for me, think of it as the difference between, say, like a pocket knife and a chef knife. Now they both have a purpose. They both are very functional. And a good pocket knife is a good pocket knife. A good chef knife is a good chef knife. But a good pocket knife is a bad chef knife, and a chef knife is a very bad pocket knife. You don't want to stick it in your pocket. Well, it's kind of the same way with this camera. The XE4 is a really good travel, a really good lightweight, minimalistic camera. Now, it would be a terrible camera if it was meant to take the place of the XT4. It isn't, and it doesn't. It would be a terrible camera if it meant to take the place of any other really positioned camera in the X series lineup. It is unto itself a great little camera. So again, there are going to be some people that are not going to like it. Personally, I think they scored with this. So tell me what you think in the comments below, and in the meantime, get out and take some pictures. So it's super tight right here, so I'm going to use the flip screen